You have probably watched an animal die, a bird on the pavement, a fish gone still at the top of the tank, a pet that one morning just stopped getting up. And you probably assume the other animals nearby felt nothing about it, that death, to them, is only an off switch. One moment the thing is there, the next it is gone. And nothing in their small minds marks the difference. Most people assume animals have no real idea what death even is. That is not what the research shows. What the research shows is stranger. Some animals stop, they gather, they go silent. And a few of them do things with their dead that look, from the outside, almost exactly like grief. Start with the question itself, because it is really two questions wearing one coat. The first is whether an animal can recognize death in another, whether it can tell that the body in front of it has crossed some line and is not coming back. The second question is darker. It is whether an animal can know that the same thing is coming for itself. Those are not the same problem. A creature can react to a corpse without ever once picturing its own. For most of the history of science, nobody went near either question, because the safe assumption, the one that kept a researcher from looking foolish, was that animals are simple machines reacting to stimuli. A still body is just a thing that stopped moving. Then a few people started watching more carefully, and the safe assumption began to come apart. So start with what death even looks like to an animal, because it is not obvious. A body that has stopped moving is not automatically a dead body. It could be asleep. It could be frozen in fear. Evolution had to build a way to tell the difference, and the signal it leaned on hardest is chemical. As a body begins to break down, it releases two compounds called putrescine and cadaverine. And across a staggering range of species, from insects to mammals, that exact smell triggers an instant hardwired recoil. Avoid, withdraw, something here is over. An animal does not need an idea of death to act on this. The body reads the room for it long before anything like a thought arrives. What comes next is the part that reflex cannot explain. Start with crows. In 2015, Kaylee Swift and John Marsloff at the University of Washington ran a grim little experiment. They had volunteers stand in a park holding a dead crow. Not a recording, not a picture, a real one. And they watched what the living crows did. The crows did not look away. They did the opposite. They swarmed. They mobbed the area, screaming, calling in more crows, until dozens had gathered around the body. Researchers call it a crow funeral, though the crows are not there to mourn. They are there to study. This is associative learning. The same machinery that teaches a crow which hawk to fear turned onto the body of one of its own. They are memorizing the place the death happened and the face of whoever was holding the body. Weeks later, those same crows still avoided both. A crow sees a dead crow and does not feel nothing. It feels something closer to a warning. Remember this place. Something killed one of us here. Elephants go further, and they go stranger. On the plains of Amboseli, in Kenya, researchers have watched elephants come upon the bones of a dead elephant and stop everything they were doing. They reach out with their trunks and touch the skull. They lift the tusks, turn them over, pass them from one elephant to the next. They will stand over the bones of their dead for hours. In 2006, Karen McComb at the University of Sussex tested this on purpose. She laid out an elephant skull, a piece of ivory, and the skulls of other animals, and let elephants choose what to investigate. They went for the elephant skull and the ivory, over and over, far more than anything else. They were not fascinated by death in general. They were fascinated by their own. And the reason they linger is memory. Elephants hold the scent and shape of specific individuals for decades, so a skull in the dirt is not a generic object to them. It can be someone they knew. Then there are chimpanzees, which are close enough to us that what they do becomes hard to watch. In 2010, James Anderson at the University of Stirling documented the death of an elderly female chimp named Pansy. In her last days, the others grew quiet and unusually gentle with her. They groomed her far more than normal. In the minutes before she died, they huddled around her. When she stopped moving, one of them lifted her arm and let it fall, the way you might check whether someone is really gone. Then the group moved away. But her adult daughter came back and stayed beside the body the entire night, alone, on the platform where her mother had died. For days afterward, the others refused to sleep there. They held no funeral, they had no words, but something in them understood that the thing that had been Pansy was finished. And then there is the ocean. In the summer of 2018, a killer whale that researchers call tahlequah gave birth to a calf that lived for about half an hour. She would not let it sink. She balanced the body on her head and pushed it through the water, and each time it slid off, she dove and lifted it back up. She carried her dead calf like that for 17 days, across more than 1,000 miles of open sea, before she finally let it go. Scientists had seen dolphins and whales carry dead calves before. None had ever been recorded carrying one that long. Whatever that was, it was not a reflex. It was not nothing. And you may have seen a smaller version of this in your own home. In 2022, a team led by Federica Uccedu in Italy surveyed hundreds of owners whose dog had lost an animal companion it had lived with. The same pattern kept coming back. The surviving dogs ate less, they slept more, they played less, asked for more attention, and some of them waited by the door or by the place the other animal used to lie. The researchers were careful not to simply call it grief, because you cannot sit a dog down and ask. But the behaviors line up with human grief almost point for point. The animal asleep on your floor right now may have already mourned something, quietly, while you were out of the house. Here's the part that should bother you, because all of that is animals recognizing death in someone else. The harder question, the one the science still cannot answer, is whether any of them know it is coming for them. And the most unsettling clue is this. These behaviors, the gatherings and the vigils and the carrying, show up in animals that are barely related to one another. Crows and elephants and whales and apes split apart tens of millions of years ago. Grief did not evolve once in us and trickle down to the rest. It appeared again and again, separately, in almost any animal whose survival depends on its bonds with others. Which means the awareness of death may be far older and far more widespread than we ever wanted to admit. So put it together. We do not know whether a crow lies awake dreading its own end. We do not know whether an elephant understands that one day it will be the pile of bones the others stop to touch. They probably do not carry it the way you do, as a weight you have hauled since you were a child. But they are not blind to it either. They know the difference between a sleeping body and a dead one. They notice the line, and they answer it with attention, with caution, with something that keeps pulling them back to the spot. The clean little border we drew, the one where only humans truly grasp death, was never really there. We just stopped looking before the animals could show us. That is the strange part. Not that animals understand death exactly the way we do, but that so many of them clearly understand that something has happened, something that matters, something worth standing over in silence. The crow remembers the place, the elephant returns to the bones, the whale will not let go. We will never get to ask them what they believe death is. All we get to watch is that, in the moment it arrives, almost none of them treat it as nothing. And maybe that is the most honest answer any of us will ever have.